I never imagined that one choice could shatter everything I'd built. For years I believed my life with Ethan was steady, even if it wasn't thrilling. We married 7 years ago, blending our lives with care. He brought his son, Ryan, who was only 11 then, quiet and guarded after his parents' divorce. I stepped carefully, determined to be the adult who never abandoned him. By the time he turned 18, he had grown into a young man who treated me with a politeness that almost felt formal. I wanted to be someone he could lean on as he faced the world, but lately there was an invisible wall between us, and I couldn't tell if I'd built it or he had. Ethan is a good man. Dependable, calm, rarely shaken. But somewhere along the way, our conversations turned into updates about bills and errands. Even our hugs felt practiced. I kept waiting for him to notice I was slipping into silence, yet he assumed my quiet meant contentment. I told myself that this is what marriage becomes when the first rush fades, that stability mattered more than excitement. I tried to believe it until I met Mark. Mark joined our office 6 months ago, taking the desk across the hall. He had an easy laugh and the kind of attention that makes you feel seen. At first it was harmless, sharing lunch breaks, joking about deadlines. I convinced myself there was nothing wrong with a little friendliness. But he started asking about my life, my thoughts, what I wanted beyond work. Ethan hadn't asked me those things in years. I knew I should pull back, yet every conversation felt like air after holding my breath. Small things became dangerous without my admitting it. I checked my phone more often, waiting for Mark's messages. I wore colors he once said suited me. When Ethan suggested a weekend trip with Ryan, I smiled and encouraged it, secretly relieved to have the house to myself. I hated the part of me that looked forward to their absence. I told myself I only needed a quiet weekend, not an escape. That Friday, after they left for the lake, Mark texted to see if I wanted company. My fingers hovered over the screen, shaking. I could have ignored him. I could have chosen anything else. But loneliness had been growing inside me like a shadow, and I answered before I thought. We met for coffee, then stayed talking until evening, our laughter spilling over stories we'd never shared with anyone else. When he brushed my hand as we stood to leave, I felt a jolt I hadn't felt in years, something electric that whispered I was alive. I should have walked away then. Instead, I agreed when he suggested a late dinner. All through the meal, a voice in my head told me to go home, that this wasn't who I wanted to be. But I kept silencing it with reasons. I deserved attention. Ethan wouldn't mind a harmless night out. Ryan wouldn't even know. Each excuse chipped away at the woman I thought I was. By the time Mark leaned closer, his eyes steady on mine, I already knew I'd lost the battle. I let myself believe I could step over a line and somehow keep my family untouched. I didn't sleep that night, though not from guilt yet. I felt alive, reckless, as if the gray weight I'd carried for months had been lifted. I stared at the ceiling, convincing myself it was only a moment, a spark I could hide and forget. But deep down I knew there's no such thing as harmless when it's built on betrayal. The thought of Ethan's steady voice, of Ryan trusting me to keep their home safe, pressed against my chest until breathing felt heavy. I told myself I could fix it if I just acted normal when they returned. I rehearsed smiles, planned words, anything to disguise the fracture that had opened inside me. Morning sunlight made everything look too clear. My phone buzzed with a message from Mark, simple and warm, yet it felt like evidence of a crime. I stared at it for a long time, trapped between deleting it and answering. I didn't delete it. I told myself I would keep boundaries, but I had already stepped past the first one, and the path back was closing fast. Even then, part of me whispered that this was only the beginning, and I didn't want to admit how right that voice would be. Word count 764.
I thought I could stop it before it became real, but temptation doesn't respect boundaries once it has found a way in. The first kiss happened like a spark on dry wood, impossible to contain once it was lit. Daniel had been working late that week, and I was alone again, scrolling absent-mindedly on my phone when Mark texted to check if I was okay. It was innocent enough, or at least that's what I told myself, but within minutes he was at my door. I should have told him to stay away. I should have closed every door he tried to open, but instead I let him in, and the moment his lips touched mine, all of my promises to myself crumbled. The kiss was nothing like I expected. It was fierce, urgent, filled with everything we had been holding back for weeks. I knew it was wrong, I knew it was dangerous, yet I didn't push him away. That single moment erased every line I had drawn in my head. I kept telling myself I could handle it, that I could keep it controlled, but passion has a way of rewriting rules without asking for permission. Point one kiss became another, and soon, we were meeting whenever Daniel's schedule gave us a gap. At first, it was once in a while, then it became a pattern, an unspoken arrangement. Each time we promised it would be the last, and each time we broke that promise as soon as we were near each other again. The secrecy added a strange thrill that I had never experienced before. It wasn't just the affection or the attention, it was the danger, the feeling of being alive in ways I hadn't felt in years that I started lying without hesitation. When Daniel asked where I had been, I told him I was meeting friends, running errands, or handling work. He never doubted me, never pressed for details, and that blind trust was a knife in my chest. The guilt sat heavy on me, but it didn't stop me. Instead, it seemed to push me deeper, as though once I had crossed one line, the rest didn't matter anymore. Each secret meeting with Mark pulled me further into something I couldn't undo. Mark wasn't oblivious to what was happening either. He knew the risks, he knew the betrayal it meant to his best friend, yet he kept coming back. He told me he couldn't stay away, that he thought about me constantly, and those words sank into my skin like fire. I didn't want to admit it, but I felt the same. What began as physical attraction quickly started twisting into something more complicated. I found myself comparing every interaction with Daniel to the way Mark treated me. Daniel's distracted answers, his tired eyes, his rushed kisses in the morning, everything about him seemed pale when I had Mark's intensity to measure against it, but with every rush of excitement came an equal wave of paranoia. I jumped at the sound of Daniel's phone calls. I rehearsed explanations in my head in case he ever asked questions. I deleted messages and lived with the fear of forgetting something behind. Every lie made me sick, yet every time I told myself it would be the last, I was already preparing for the next. It was a cycle of desire and dread, and I was caught in the middle, unable to step off. There were moments when Mark would look at me with something deeper than passion in his eyes, and it terrified me. He never said it outright, but I could feel it, that pull of wanting more than stolen hours. I told myself this wasn't love, that it was just filling an empty space in my marriage, but part of me wondered if that was a lie too. Was I falling for him, or was I addicted to the forbidden? I couldn't answer, and the uncertainty only tangled me further. That I began noticing the distance growing between Daniel and me. He'd ask about my day, and I'd answer quickly, avoiding his eyes. He'd try to hold me at night, and I'd turn away, claiming I was tired. He didn't press me, but I saw the confusion in his face. He didn't suspect the truth, not yet, but he sensed that something was slipping out of reach. His silence made it worse, because I almost wished he would confront me, expose me, free me from the weight of carrying it alone. But he didn't, and so I kept lying, kept pretending, while a part of me crumbled inside. There were nights when I lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about how fragile it all was. One mistake, one slip, one wrong word, and everything could come crashing down. And yet, the thought of ending it with Mark made my chest tighten in a different way. I didn't want to lose him, not even if it meant keeping my marriage intact. That realization frightened me more than anything else. By then, it wasn't just an affair. It was a double life, and each day I woke up knowing I was further from the woman I used to be. What started as glances and whispers had now become something unstoppable, and though I still wore the mask of a faithful wife, beneath it I was drowning in lies. I told myself I was still in control, but in reality, the affair was controlling me. White heavy checkmark word count 762. Would you like me to move on to section 3, the unraveling and consequences? Same style, same word count, and keeping it intense without repetition. The longer it went on, the harder it became to hide. What started as small lies turned into entire days built around deception, and I began to lose track of what story I had told and to whom. I thought I was careful, but no secret stays buried forever. Daniel started to notice the cracks. He never accused me directly, but his questions carried a new weight. He would ask why I was so distracted, why I avoided his touch, why I smiled at my phone when I thought no one was looking. Each question cut deeper than if he had shouted at me, because I could see the doubt growing in his eyes. The breaking point came sooner than I expected. It wasn't some dramatic discovery, no hidden camera or confrontation in the act. It was something as simple as a message I forgot to delete. Daniel had borrowed my phone to check a work email, and in that moment, everything I had tried to protect fell apart. The look on his face when he read Mark's words will haunt me for the rest of my life. It wasn't rage or fury, it was devastation, the kind of heartbreak you can't disguise. He didn't need to ask questions, the truth was right there in front of him. I tried to explain, but what excuse could possibly exist? How could I justify betraying the man who trusted me without hesitation? The more I spoke, the more I realized how hollow my words sounded. He didn't shout, he didn't call me names, he just looked at me like I was a stranger. That silence was louder than any anger could have been. The fallout spread quickly. Daniel confronted Mark, and the bond they had built over decades shattered in an instant. Their friendship ended the moment Daniel understood the depth of the betrayal. Mark tried to defend me, tried to claim he had real feelings, but it didn't matter. To Daniel, they were both gone, the friend he considered a brother and the wife he thought he knew. I watched two of the most important relationships in his life collapse because of choices I couldn't take back. And the days that followed, the house became unbearable. Daniel barely spoke to me, moving through the rooms like a ghost. The man who once trusted me with everything now couldn't even look at me. I kept trying to reach him, to explain, to ask for forgiveness I didn't deserve, but each attempt pushed him further away. I realized too late that forgiveness wasn't something I could demand, it was something I had destroyed the moment I crossed that first line. The worst part wasn't losing Mark, though that ended as abruptly as it began. The affair dissolved under the weight of exposure, leaving behind nothing but regret and silence. The worst part was seeing the way Daniel changed. He had always carried himself with quiet certainty, a man who believed in loyalty, in love, in the bond we shared. After the truth came out, that certainty was gone. I had taken something from him that he could never recover, his belief in me, his faith in us. Nights became the hardest. I would lie awake beside him, feeling the distance that now stretched like a wall between us. Sometimes I wanted to confess every detail, to lay it all bare in hopes that the honesty might ease the pain, but other times I wanted to stay silent, because speaking it out loud would only deepen the wounds. In the end, silence won, and with it came a hollow emptiness that settled into every corner of my life. People think an affair is just about stolen moments and passion, but what they don't understand is the cost. It's not just the lies or the secrecy, it's the destruction that ripples outward long after the affair ends. It's the way trust evaporates in an instant, the way love curdles into suspicion, the way every ordinary moment is poisoned by doubt. I learned that too late, when there was nothing left to salvage. That I don't know if Daniel will ever forgive me. Part of me doesn't expect him to, because forgiveness can't erase the betrayal. I know that even if he stays, things will never be the same. The marriage we had is gone, replaced by something fragile and uncertain. And if he leaves, I won't blame him, because I know I'm the one who destroyed what we built. Looking back, I wonder if it was worth it, those moments of excitement, the thrill of being wanted, the fire that felt so intoxicating. But the answer is always the same. No amount of passion can justify the pain I caused. I traded years of trust and love for something fleeting, and in the end, I lost far more than I gained. This is the truth I live with now. The affair ended, but the consequences will never leave. I broke my husband's heart, I ended his closest friendship, and I betrayed the person I once believed I was. One choice, one weakness, and everything was different forever. I can't undo it, I can't erase it, and I can't go back to the life I had before. All I can do is carry the weight of what I did and accept that some mistakes mark you for life. White heavy checkmark word count 768. Do you also want me to create a final title plus YouTube style description, optimized for faceless storytelling / infidelity theme, tying all three sections together?
After the truth came out, nothing in my life returned to normal. Even in the smallest moments, I felt the shadow of what I had done. Family gatherings became unbearable because Daniel's silence spoke louder than any conversation around us. Friends noticed the distance, whispering questions I couldn't answer. I carried shame everywhere, like a second skin that refused to come off. When I looked at Daniel, I saw the weight in his eyes, the kind that comes from a wound too deep to heal with time alone. Every word between us was careful, every glance trained, as if we were strangers forced to share the same house. Mark disappeared from our lives almost immediately. He didn't call, didn't try to fix anything, and that absence was its own punishment. What I thought was passion turned out to be nothing more than weakness dressed up as desire. When the secrecy vanished, so did the intensity, leaving me with nothing but regret. I realized then that what I had risked everything for wasn't love, it was an escape. An escape from routine, from loneliness, from the parts of myself I didn't want to face. But escapes always end, and when they do, the reality waiting on the other side is harsher than ever. Daniel never asked me for details. Maybe he didn't want to know, or maybe he already knew enough. His silence carved into me deeper than anger could have. Anger would have meant he still cared enough to fight. Silence meant he had nothing left to give. Nights were the hardest. We lay on opposite sides of the bed, not touching, the gap between us growing wider each day. I wondered if he replayed everything in his head, every excuse I had made, every night I came home later than I should have. I imagined him counting lies the way I counted regrets. The loneliness I had once blamed for my choices became suffocating now. Before, I told myself I was neglected, that I wasn't seen or appreciated. After, I realized that Daniel had trusted me so completely that he never thought he needed to watch me closely. That trust, so pure and undeserved, was exactly what I destroyed. No affair, no thrill, no fleeting connection could replace the security of knowing someone believes in you without question. By chasing what I thought I needed, I shattered the very thing I already had. Some days I caught myself imagining what life would have been like if I had stopped before it began. If I had turned away from that first kiss, if I had drawn the line and kept it. Would Daniel and I still be laughing together over coffee, planning our future, holding on to the quiet certainty of partnership? Or would the cracks have grown anyway, leaving me searching for something outside? The questions circle endlessly, but the answers don't matter. The reality is fixed, and I can't rewrite it. That I also had to face myself. It was easy to blame circumstances, to say Daniel's long hours created the gap or that Mark's persistence pushed me into it. But the truth is that I made every choice. I allowed every step. I let desire speak louder than loyalty, and I let selfishness blind me to the destruction it would cause. Facing that truth is the hardest part, because it means there is no one else to blame. The mirror doesn't lie, and what I see in it now is someone I never thought I could be. The future hangs uncertain. Daniel hasn't decided whether he will stay or go, and I live in that limbo every day. I know leaving would make sense for him, yet part of me clings to the hope that he might find a way to forgive. Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened, but maybe it could allow us to build something new from the ashes. I don't know if that's possible, or if I even deserve it, but it's the only hope I have left. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that affairs don't just end, they echo. They echo in the silence at dinner, in the unanswered texts, in the cold space on the bed, in the way friends look at you differently once they know. They echo in the eyes of the person you hurt, long after the affair is over. They become a permanent part of your story, whether you want them to or not. I don't tell this story for sympathy. I tell it because I know how easy it is to believe it could never be you, how easy it is to think your marriage, your morals, your love would protect you from ever crossing that line. I thought the same. But temptation doesn't come as a storm, it comes as a whisper, as a glance, as a moment that feels harmless until it isn't. And once you open that door, closing it again is impossible. What remains now is a choice, whether I let this mistake define me forever or whether I find a way to rebuild myself from it. I may never regain Daniel's trust, I may never feel the certainty of our old life again, but I can choose to carry the lesson with me. A single act of betrayal can erase years of love, and nothing is worth that cost. I know that now, too late for the life I had, but maybe not too late for the person I can still become. White heavy checkmark word count 767. Do you want me to now create a final full title and YouTube style description that ties all 4 sections together and captures the story in a way that hooks viewers for a faceless storytelling channel?